And the reason you don't hear about a lot of cults, by the way, is because they didn't end up in flames or mass suicide. But that doesn't mean that they didn't prey on, dozens, sometimes hundreds or even thousands of people, depending on the cult.
In the heart of medieval mystery lies the Codex Gigas, a book draped in dark legend and whispered fear.
The whole Bible, by the way.
I did when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I actually had Bible class in Florida.
Known as the Devil's Bible, this massive tome was said to be written in a single night by a monk, desperate to avoid eternal damnation. But what makes it even more terrifying is the sinister myth surrounding it. Its pages are believed to be touched by the devil himself. Through tales of unearthly resistance, and a curse that seems to take hold of those who study it, the Codex is no mere book. It's a living enigma, alive with something ancient and dangerous. Let's dive in and uncover the dark truths behind this unholy manuscript. Unholy resilience. Among the smouldering remains of a destroyed monastery, walls laid to ash, timbers broken like limbs, air still shuddering with the aftershocks of violence, something unthinkable remained unscathed amidst the destruction. The Codex Gigas, the purported Devil's Bible, remained whole in the midst of devastation, as if flames and brutality had shrunk back from it. The other part of the abbey had the marks of fire and anger, charred wood, soot-blackened relics, broken icons. But the Codex was left standing, a monolithic book, chillingly clean. When soldiers attempted to take it as booty, they found themselves facing more than an old book. They faced resistance, not from guards or traps, but from the book itself. Its weight could not be explained, much heavier than it should have been. Men who had trained to bear armor and spoils of war found it difficult even to lift it. The wrappings were warm to the touch, not the warmth of sun-heated leather, but with a low, unnatural heat that seemed to emanate from the inside, as if something in its center smoldered quietly, always alive. And the longer they handled it, the more out of place it felt, not only physically, but spiritually. The Codex seemed to regard them, seemed to refuse to be removed. Try as they might, attempt after attempt was in vain. Boots sliding upon burned ground, hands seared on its surface, nerves broken from unseen tension. Soldiers who took pride in their own lack of weaponry began whispering of evil omens, of cursed relics, of ancient objects which protect themselves. Later, the manuscript lay abandoned, unclaimed, untouched in the ashes like a guardian of forbidden knowledge. Villagers found it days later. They were also disturbed, but not like the soldiers, who did not know what it could be. Rumors went from lip to shaking lip. The Devil's Book had endured not by chance, but by intention. Everything else was consumed by the flames indiscriminately. But the Codex was left intact, as if guarded by some unholy force. What started out as a story of paranormal longevity soon evolved into something much more sinister. The story developed, driven by centuries of fascination and terror. Scholars started wondering whether the survival of the Codex was merely the work of masterful building, or whether it was the very material form of an evil agreement, a haunted treaty inscribed not only in ink, but in blood and soul. The book wasn't just written, it was willed into being, a will so powerful, so complete, that it was able to override mortality and rot. Certain obscure traditions describe items of autonomous protection, preservation spells, devilish sigils, wards which respond to threat with fury and combat. In these traditions, the item becomes something more than artifact. It becomes actant. The Codex Gigas is very possibly one of these. Not only a book that lived through the 1,000 years, but one that will not die. Scholars who encounter the manuscript commonly comment on its nearly predatory quietness, like a beast waiting in ambush. Not sleeping, but waiting, watching. Its pages are as keen and living as the day they were written. The inks, crafted from mystical substances and blood-based pigments, have not dulled. The parchment, scraped from 160 animal hides, is taut and flexible. Its durability is not only physical, it's metaphysical. While time has worn down every structure that has contained it, the Codex Gigas has remained defiant. Its immunity has bolstered its legend. With each failed attempt at destruction, theft, or even desecration of the Codex, there is fuel added to the same conclusion. It was designed to last. Not by chance, not by providence, but by malevolent determination. Those who imbued it with life, who perhaps made a deal with a desperate monk in the dead of night, remain bound to it, protecting it, perhaps even sustaining it. And so long as that compact remains intact, the Codex Gigas shall survive. It does not fade, it does not weaken, it operates beyond the laws of nature, a monument not of faith or aesthetics, but of rebellion, not merely enduring the passage of time, it is engaging in a battle of quiet violence against it. This is not an ordinary book. It is a work spawned by desperation, bound by blackness, and sustained by unyielding, hellish resolve. And it will remain here long after its final reader has lost their mind, long after the world has forgotten the names of the empires that once contained it. The Codex Gigas does not just exist, it persists with intention. It is the dying gasp of a damned bargain still ringing across centuries. The cult of the Black Flame. Buried in the creases of time and shrouded by the veil of history, a mysterious group called the Cult of the Black Flame has been a source of unnerving rumors. This enigmatic cult is not just a group of religious fanatics or occultists, but an ancient cult deeply connected with the notorious Codex Gigas, a book that has fascinated the minds of scholars, mystics, and historians. The Codex is not merely a text to them, it is the doorway to forbidden knowledge, a holy artifact containing truths hidden beneath centuries of religious censorship and divine manipulation. The cult holds that the Codex Gigas contains the uncorrupted knowledge of the origins of man, knowledge hidden by the powers of heaven, shrouded in secrecy, so that mankind would not know its true purpose. The cult of the Black Flame came into existence with the rediscovery of the Codex Gigas, when its real importance came to light. Their creed is not easy to categorize under the parameters of traditional philosophy or religion. They believe that one can become enlightened only through accepting the darkness, the very meaning of what the Codex symbolizes. The Codex, to them, is much more than a medieval relic of ancient Christianity or a curiosity. It is a tool of enlightenment, illuminating those who are brave enough to unlock its secret messages. The cultists see the Codex as a map, guiding them to freedom through knowledge that transcends the limits of ordinary belief systems. The ceremonies performed by the Black Flame are reputed to be as enigmatic as they are ancient. Cult members are said to meet in remote places, abandoned temples, crumbling castles, and shadowy glades, to perform rituals under the cover of darkness. The ceremonies typically involve the use of archaic symbols that bear a direct similarity to the elaborate drawings and notes contained within the Codex itself. Some of these symbols are believed to be able to unleash dormant forces, warping the very fabric of reality itself. Witnesses who have chanced upon these ritualistic meetings describe strange phenomena. Candles that flicker in abnormal patterns, shadows that move independently, and symbols that appear to shift and change when looked at for too long. These events leave the observers feeling uneasy, a growing sense that they might have just seen the periphery of something much darker than they could understand. The cult rituals reportedly involve chanting in tongues, languages that linguists today are not able to recognize or decipher. These incantations, which eerily parallel the cryptic verses of the Codex's more mystical sections, are thought to be some sort of contact with beings or powers from another plane of existence. Others have said that the language used by the cultists is the language of the damned, a dialect that has lain hidden in the Codex for centuries, waiting for the proper people to unlock its veiled meanings. The cult members are purportedly gearing up to do something grand, something that will usher the return of whatever evil forces have been inscribed in the Codex pages. The Black Flame's quest is not driven by the typical ends of power, wealth, and immortality. While other occult groups may try to exploit knowledge for individual benefit, the cult of the Black Flame has much more mystical motivations. They do not desire to control the Codex in order to dominate. Instead, they wish to communicate with the entities that they feel are attached to it. To them, the Codex is not merely a relic of a bygone era. It is a gateway to an unseen world, a threshold to powers beyond the horizons of human knowledge. The Codex is not a book. It is a living, breathing thing, a vessel for something that stands prepared to make its comeback to the world. While the cult itself is still somewhat of an enigma, the little that has been heard indicates that they are getting the world ready for an imminent event, one which will disentangle the fabric of reality. The Codex Gigas, to them, is more than an ancient relic, but a harbinger, a doorway to the unlocking of a new age, in which the lines between the familiar and unfamiliar world are smudged, and the powers that were long concealed can once more gain their will over human civilization. The Black Flame's ultimate goal is still unknown, but their worship of the Codex, their quest for arcane knowledge, and their ritualistic activities indicate that they are preparing for something greater than any one of us can comprehend. This sinister and enigmatic cult, whose origins are inextricably linked to the Codex Gigas, is a chilling reminder of the true potential of the manuscript. It is not simply an old book. It is a living artifact, guarded by evil forces and desired by those who wish to uncover the secrets of the ages. The cult of the Black Flame is just one of many, but their relationship to the Codex puts them in the center of an enigma that has fascinated the minds of many men across time. No matter whether they are motivated by sheer madness, an overwhelming need for enlightenment, or a shadowy summons from beyond, the Black Flame is a power to be feared, a caution that some learning is better unlearned, and some secrets never uncovered. The Hungering Book. There's something about the Codex Gigas that goes beyond mere interest. Scholars have described compulsion, not curiosity, as if the book selects the person who will be obsessed. Scholars speak of a compulsion to read every word, to study the heavy illustrations until they cannot see themselves anymore. For others, the Codex is not just a project, it becomes a voice. People have said that dreams start to change. Pages flip before the mind's eye during the night. Words chant in forgotten languages. A whispering voice beckons them back into the book, with deeper insights, darker truths. Those who return that invitation sometimes come away hollowed and far away. Others do not come away. Theories abound. Some think the Codex works like a living thing, drawing energy and attention from its readers. The more they read it, the more it reads them. Resonances of such phrases as "seek the truth within" or "complete the ritual" are not metaphorical. They are calls. The further down one goes, the more difficult it is to ascend. And like a parasite, the Codex attaches. Scholars who gave it up usually report persistent hallucinations, symbols spilling into ordinary life, or waking up in the middle of a sentence reciting sentences aloud. Madness appears to be not a threat, but a necessity. The Codex does not merely require knowledge, it consumes the mind. Heaven versus hell. Between the pages behind the radiant drawings and flowing script, a secret struggle brews in the Codex Gigas, a struggle not fought with blade or flame, but with scripture. Some theological historians suggest that this book, instead of being an inert chronicle, is itself the battlefield, a war-torn parchment plain where angels and demons fight on endlessly for human souls. The Codex's blend of sacred scripture and forbidden works is no coincidence, they claim. It is a poisoned chalice, a twisted mirror of divine revelation. The placement of medical texts alongside exorcisms, prayers alongside necromancy, is not arbitrary juxtaposition. It is subversion. a subtle insertion of demonic ideology hidden behind familiar terms. This theory suggests that all holy passages in the Codex have been subtly corrupted by infernal influence. Rituals that were once healing have been remapped to open the door to possession. Prayers that were once consecrated now take readers further into darkness. Reading the Codex in this perspective is not neutral. It's complicity. A liturgical act that sustains a war still raging beyond understanding. Every reader is a soldier unwittingly conscripted, their brain the battlefield where light and darkness fight. Some never know what they're a part of. Others sense it in the trembling of their skin, the searing at the back of their eyes, the feeling of an unseen presence standing just behind them as they turn each page. It's not metaphor. It's not madness. It's the Codex wielding ink as a weapon, and the reader as a vessel. The Devil's Hand. The Codex Gigas is home to one of the most haunting pieces of information, a half-page depiction of the devil, smiling broadly with an uncompanionable, animalistic pleasure. This image, as in no other medieval manuscript, is notable not merely for its violence, but for its central position within the manuscript. This is more than a devilish frill. It's a work's central concentration, provoking questions as to how this work was created. Historians and scholars wonder how one monk could have so easily written a huge manuscript on a single evening. Flawed ink flow, pressure, and technique would indicate something extraordinary beyond typical handiwork. Speculations infer that the monk was not solely working independently. Rather, there is the imagination of the devil's hand, one that proposes that the monk would have been in possession of another, that the devil himself has been driving the strokes of each pen. Contemporary interpretations of the devil's portrait demonstrate micro-shading methods unattainable by medieval technology, pointing to supernatural intervention. If true, then this implies the Codex was not simply inspired by dark forces, but crafted by them. This hypothesis implies that the Codex Gigas is not a book. It might be the devil's own masterpiece. And even now, it's possible, perhaps, the devil's presence still resonates within its pages, leading astray those brave enough to study it. This ghostly possibility turns the Codex into more than a relic, but a malevolent, living force of darkness, still exercised over those who touch it. Hallucinations and the language of the damned. The ultimate, most frightening frontier is not in the Codex's contents, but its aftermath. Students of the manuscript who have spent time with the book closely are known to find their reality unraveling. Accounts of hallucinations abound. Soft voices whisper in the silence. Shadows loom just beyond visibility. One academic described the feeling of being surveilled from inside the book itself. These visions are not fleeting. They linger, often long after the reader has moved away from the Codex. Some have changes in vision, dreamscapes spilling over into the real world. A 17th century scribe said that the image of the devil on the page would shift, conforming to his eyes. Pages turned by themselves. Candles danced in the presence of ink. Psychologists today label this bibliomancy-caused psychosis, but others believe it to be something more sinister. What if the Codex is not merely cursed, but interactive? A mirror to every reader's soul, making their fears echo, tormenting them with flashes of what they were never supposed to behold. This theory is supported by the Codex's darkest stratum, its esoteric language. Although predominantly Latin, pivotal text ventures into an indecipherable tongue, a disordered dialect of Latin, Hebrew, and glyphs unknown. Academics refer to it as the language of the damned, an arcane script intended to be read only by those initiated in hellish rites. Its existence indicates the Codex was never intended for the masses. It was a safe, a whisper to select minds, a trapdoor to information meant to be lost. But now the door is open, and the Codex remains waiting, patient, living, and attentive. Thanks for braving the plunge with us into the depths of the Codex Gigas. Whether it is a remnant of some ancient evil or a misinterpreted miracle shrouded in terror, one thing remains. It still attracts us. Remain with us as we continue to strip away the sinister layers of history's most damned creations.